9 things are quietly closing your third eye right now. Before I name them, take a slow breath. 1 gentle inhale and a long, soft exhale. Let the air remind you that this is not about flashy proof or parlor tricks. It's about attention, memory, and the small habits that train you to look away from what is already here. According to certain Gnostic writings discovered near Nag Hammadi, texts like the Gospel of Philip and others that speak in a different key about the human condition, there is a story about forgetting. In that telling, your deepest origin, the monad or source, has been hidden behind layers. A crafted world, a maker called the demiurge, and intermediary intelligences sometimes named archontes. Those images are metaphors and maps. They describe how distraction, doubt, and imposed structures can blunt the subtle faculty that discerns beyond surface reality. Call it anamnesis, remembering, or simply coming back to a capacity to perceive. Whatever language you prefer, the point stands. Certain everyday habits close the door on that perception. I will name 9 of those habits now. For each, I'll explain how it interferes with inner sight, and I'll offer a short, practical countermeasure you can use immediately. If this resonates and you want to connect with others exploring this path, write recognition in the comments. 1 word, a signal that you're paying attention. Keep that word as a tiny ritual of return. 1. Chronic doubt and self-invalidation. You've been taught to distrust your subtle impressions, the quiet nudge, the strange alignment that feels like a memory. Doubt is useful as a tool, but when it becomes automatic, when every tentative perception is met by an inner, "this must be wrong," or "this is nonsense," it functions as a closing force. In the Gnostic frame, such doubt is the exact channel the archontes use, a whisper that interrupts the thread of recognition and makes you file your inner knowing under imagination. Countermeasure. Notice the thought that dismisses your feeling, then hold it lightly. Practice a simple instruction. When a small insight arises, label it gently. Feeling, impression, image, without arguing for or against it. Let the observation sit for 30 seconds. The act of noticing doubt rather than obeying it weakens its reflex and gives space for perception to surface. 2. Constant mental noise and unrelenting distraction. Your attention is being siphoned in 1,000 polite ways. Notifications, constant streams of information, etiquette of always responding. This flood creates a baseline of static in which subtle signals cannot emerge. Imagine trying to hear a whisper in a crowded market. This is what chronic distraction does to the third eye. Countermeasure. Build micro-silences into your day. Start with 1 minute. Sit with your eyes open, turn your phone face down, and count 3 natural breaths. If a thought intrudes, breathe with it and let it pass. This small practice rewires the nervous system to tolerate quiet, and quiet is the frequency where inner sight is heard. 3. Outsourcing spiritual authority to intermediaries. When you make institutions, texts, or personalities the only route to the sacred, you hand over the keys to your own experience. In the Gnostic narratives, a whole architecture of intermediaries separates people from direct knowing, and that architecture is sustained by unquestioned reliance on external authorities. Outsourcing closes the channel by training you to seek permission outside yourself. Countermeasure. Perform a simple bodily verification. Place 1 hand on your chest and name quietly, "I feel." Notice the warmth, the expansion under your palm. This small claim, feeling what you are feeling, returns authority to your body and interrupts the habit of delegating truth to someone else. 4. Denial of embodiment, ignoring your body's signals. The body is the immediate instrument of perception. If you live primarily in ideas or treat bodily signals as irrelevant or primitive, you sever a crucial feedback loop. The Gnostic practice of anamnesis is often tied to bodily markers, points you can touch to verify inner alignment. Ignoring those markers is a basic closure. Countermeasure. Try a gentle touchpoint scan. Place your fingertips at the base of your skull, just where the neck meets the head. Apply light, respectful pressure, and notice any subtle sensations, heat, tingling, or a sense of relief. No expectation, just noticing. This habit trains you to accept the body as a legitimate source of information. 5. Emotional reactivity. Fear and anger, that loop. Strong, repeated emotional states, fear, shame, rage, create a habit of contraction that narrows perception. When the emotional center is on constant alert, the inner sight retreats because survival modes prioritize action over subtle recognition. According to the texts, the Archontes exploit these patterns, feeding the circuitry that keeps attention on danger rather than on remembering. Countermeasure. Use a simple labeling technique the moment you notice intensity. Name the feeling: fear, anger, sorrow. Then breathe slowly for 15 seconds. Naming creates distance. Breath soothes the nervous system. Over time, this weakens the loop and frees bandwidth for quieter perception. 6. Sensory overindulgence, chasing constant stimulation. Overstimulation retunes your sense gear to the loud and immediate, bright screens, heavy tastes, constant social contact. This trains the system to expect only stark inputs and makes subtle frequencies hard to register. The third eye, if you imagine it as a receiver, responds best when the receiver is not overloaded by base-level noise. Countermeasure. Take a short sensory fast. For one meal or one evening, reduce sensory load intentionally. Dim lights, avoid screens, choose simple food. Use that time to rest the senses and attend inwardly for 5 minutes. Even a single fast recalibrates the palate for subtlety. 7. Sleep deprivation and substance dulling. Chronic lack of rest or habitual reliance on substances that blunt awareness reduces the clarity of perception. The nervous system requires rest, rhythm, and integrity to notice faint signals. In the Gnostic metaphor, whenever the instrument is dulled, the ability to remember is impeded. Countermeasure. Restore micro-rests into your day. If a full sleep overhaul isn't possible, practice 3 minutes of soft eye rest. Sit, close your eyes, breathe slowly. Let the muscles behind your eyes relax. Avoid prescribing cures. Instead, tend to rhythm. Small, regular rests accumulate into clearer days. 8. Rigid dogma and ideological blindness. Certainty about systems of thought, political, religious, or philosophical, that refuses any possibility of nuance becomes a mental blindfold. When you've decided the map is the territory and refuse to entertain contradiction, the third eye is boxed in by the edges of belief. Gnostic texts themselves warn of systems that ossify and prevent the movement of memory. Countermeasure. Practice curiosity toward your strongest conviction. For one breath, try on a contrary sentence and notice the felt sense it produces in the body. Is there contraction, relief, surprise? This small experiment loosens rigidity and reintroduces a capacity to entertain other possibilities, an essential condition for inner sight. 9. Lack of intention and the absence of ritual of recognition. Finally, the most practical closer is simple neglect, not doing anything to cultivate the faculty. Without intentional practices, rituals of attention, short recognitions, even a nightly pause, you allow default habits to persist. The Gnostic path emphasizes anamnesis, practices that invite remembrance. A life without such small rituals is fertile ground for the third eye to drift closed. Countermeasure. Begin a 30-second nightly ritual. Place one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly, and speak a single clear sentence in the present tense. I remember my origin. I open my sight. Keep it short, honest, and non-performative. This tiny ceremony trains attention and over time creates a muscle memory of recognition. Before we continue, let's do a brief optional embodied check together. No claims, no pressure, just evidence you can observe. This is a short verification some Gnostic writings invite. Touch 3 gentle points and notice. If you are willing, bring your right hand to the side of your head so your palm rests where the hand meets the skull, above the ear, soft, not pressing. Then place the other hand at the base of your skull, where the neck meets the head. Finally, bring a palm to the center of your chest, over the sternum. Hold each point lightly and simply notice any warmth, any flutter, any sense of presence, even if it's tiny or ambiguous. You may feel nothing at all, and that is perfectly fine. The point is not to prove anything. It is to reintroduce a habit of checking inside rather than always reaching outside. This practice is optional and brief. No dramatic expectations. Just notice. You may have felt something subtle, a tingle, a soft pressure, a slight relaxation, or you may have noticed only the sensation of your hands against your skin. Both are useful information. The habit of checking rebuilds a trust in bodily confirmation, and trust is the scaffold that allows perception to grow. A few clarifying notes about the language I've been using. When I speak of archontes or the demiurge, I'm referencing images and metaphors found in certain Gnostic texts discovered near Nag Hammadi. These are not statements about everyone's faith or history. They are symbolic ways to map how distraction and imposed systems can operate. Likewise, the 3-point checks are taught in some of those writings as a way to verify inner origin. Consider them as optional tools rather than doctrinal pronouncements. Now, a brief activation you can use as a closing hinge, a single-line declaration, offered in the first-person present. This is not a magic formula. It is a focused intention that helps direct your attention and claim a moment of recognition. If you are seated comfortably, take 1 soft breath in and 1 slow breath out. Then, once, aloud or silently, say, "I remember my origin. I open my sight." Repeat it only once if you wish. No chanting, no performance. Keep it brief. If words feel awkward, let the meaning sit quietly in your chest. A few practical points to keep in mind. None of these practices guarantees a sudden dramatic opening. They are small, disciplined gestures that change how you move through attention. If you are dealing with significant medical or psychiatric conditions, continue to work with trained professionals. These practices are supplemental, not substitutes for care. Historical claims in this conversation are framed according to specific Gnostic texts and should be approached as one tradition among many. If this material landed with you and you'd like a guided follow-up series of short activations, comment "recognition now," one word, and that will help us create a thread of practice. If you try any of the micro tips, notice what changes in your day, then come back and share a single word that captures it. To close, remember that the third eye is not a distant prize reserved for a few. It's an attention habit you can cultivate. The 9 closers I named are not moral failings. They are habits and conditions, some systemic, some personal, that can be softened. A gentle reduction of noise, a tiny ritual of recognition, the willingness to check the body for truth, the naming of felt states, these are practical steps. Over time, the field adjusts. The whisper becomes audible. If you want more guided activations and short practices, subscribe and comment "open" below so I know to bring the next session. Thank you for staying present with this. May your attention become a home for remembering.